The Central Bank of Iraq heist. In the early hours of March 18, 2003, just 2 days before the US-led invasion of Iraq, one of the most astonishing thefts in history occurred. Saddam Hussein, anticipating the fall of his regime, sent his son Qusay to the Central Bank of Iraq with a handwritten note. It ordered the withdrawal of nearly $1 billion in cash. There were no weapons, no alarms, no resistance. The bank staff, under threat of death, complied. Shrink-wrapped bundles of $100 bills were loaded into trucks and armored vehicles. What unfolded was a surreal bank job, legal under Saddam's authority, but criminal by any moral standard. After the invasion, $650 million of the stolen money was discovered inside a palace wall. The remaining $350 million was never recovered. Some believe it funded the Iraqi insurgency. Others suspect it was smuggled into foreign accounts. Either way, it vanished into the chaos of a collapsing dictatorship. This wasn't just a theft. It was state-sanctioned looting on an unprecedented scale, timed perfectly to exploit the confusion of war. It remains the largest bank heist in recorded history. The Hatton Garden Heist. Over Easter weekend in April 2015, a group of elderly thieves executed one of the most infamous heists in British history. The target, Hatton Garden Safe Deposit, a vault in London's jewelry district holding millions in cash, gold, and gems. The culprits, a crew of retirees with long rap sheets, calling themselves the Firm. They disabled an alarm, climbed down an elevator shaft, and drilled through 2 meters of concrete to access the vault. The operation took several days, and nearly £14 million, about $20 million, was taken. The scene left behind, a gaping hole in the wall and empty deposit boxes. The public was stunned to learn that these weren't high-tech hackers or young criminals. They were seasoned burglars in their 60s and 70s, using experience and patience instead of gadgets. But they got careless. Police, already tracking some of them, planted bugs in their cars and safe houses, capturing incriminating conversations. 6 men were arrested and received multi-year sentences. Still, more than a third of the loot remains missing. The Hatton Garden heist became legendary, a nostalgic throwback to old-school crime executed with quiet cunning. The Banko Central burglary. In August 2005, employees at Banko Central in Fortaleza, Brazil, arrived to discover $70 million in cash had vanished without a trace. The vault appeared untouched, until investigators found a hole in the floor. 3 months earlier, a group of criminals had rented a property nearby, posing as landscapers. Beneath the facade, they dug an 80-meter tunnel beneath city streets, complete with wood supports, lights, and ventilation. It was a construction marvel, evading all detection. Over a weekend, the crew breached the bank floor and removed 3.5 tons of unmarked Brazilian reals. When authorities responded, there were no fingerprints, no alarms, and no suspects. Eventually, police captured some members of the gang and recovered part of the money, but most of the cash, and several suspects, were never found. One was even believed to have been kidnapped and murdered by rivals. The Banko Central burglary wasn't just a robbery, it was a masterclass in stealth, planning, and engineering. It ranks among the most brilliant and daring heists in modern history. The British Bank of the Middle East heist. In 1976, Lebanon was in the middle of a terrible civil war. The streets of Beirut were full of fighting, and the country was falling apart actually. However, during this chaos, a group of militants came up with a bold plan. Some people believed they were supported by the PLO, not knowing it was actually far from that, and all they wanted was to rob the British Eye Bank of the Middle East, one of the biggest banks in Beirut. So one night, these militants used explosives to blow a hole in the wall of the bank. And the very moment they made their way inside, they brought in expert safecrackers. I mean, professionals were flown in all the way from Europe, and for several days they worked without being stopped. They opened the vaults and took everything they could find, like cash, gold bars, expensive jewelry, and even secret documents. And by the time they were done, they had stolen somewhere between $20 and $50 million. Whereas, since the war had destroyed the government and the legal system, the bank couldn't do anything about it, and no one was ever caught till date, and the money was never found. The Nightsbridge security deposit robbery. Somewhere in 1987, a man named Valerio Vice had big plans. Yeah, actually being an Italian playboy who also happened to be a clever and dangerous criminal. He set his sights on a place in London called the Nightsbridge Safe Deposit Center, a building where rich people kept their valuables in private boxes. So it happens that one day, Valerio walked into the center pretending to be a customer. He said he wanted to rent a deposit box, but as soon as he got inside with his accomplices, they pulled out weapons, tied up the staff, and locked the doors. Then they put a sign outside that said, "Closed," so no one would come in and disturb them. However, the robbery went on for several hours though, quietly opening hundreds of deposit boxes, stealing piles of money, jewelry, and other treasures. And by the time they were done, they had taken what would be worth $98 million today. And despite the fact that Valerio managed to escape after all of this, his love for luxury gave him away. And the moment he returned to England to get his favorite car, a Ferrari precisely, he was immediately caught by the police. The Dunbar armored robbery. One certain night in 1997, in the city of Los Angeles, a man named Alan Pace was ready to pull off something big. As someone who worked as a security inspector at Dunbar Armored, a company that moved and stored huge amounts of cash, he knew every corner of the building. He knew when the cameras turned, when the guards took breaks, and where all the money was kept. Using this inside knowledge, Alan came up with a very cunning plan. He called up 5 of his childhood friends and told them exactly what to do, and when the time came, they struck fast. In just 30 minutes, they tied up the guards and made off with $18.9 million in cash, being the biggest cash robbery in US history at the time. And for years, the group stayed quiet and careful. They didn't flash their money or talk too much. But one small mistake ruined it all. As one of the guys went on paying a real estate agent using stacks of the stolen cash years later, bills that had serial numbers the FBI could trace. And unfortunately, this mistake led to their arrest. But even though most of the crew was caught, a large part of the money had vanished, so the FBI only got back a portion of it. The Lumis Fargo Heist. So picture this. It's 1997 in North Carolina, and a guy named David Gant is working at Lumis Fargo, surrounded by mountains of cash. One day he thinks, why not just take it all? With the help of his co-worker crush Kelly Campbell and a sketchy crew, he walks out with $17.3 million in cash, literally stuffing bills into the back of a van like it's laundry day. David dips to Mexico with $50K and a dream, while the others start balling out back home. Mansions, hot tubs, brand new Hummers. Subtle? Not at all. They were spending like they had a cheat code to life. Naturally, the FBI clocked the flexing fast. Meanwhile, David's chilling in Cozumel, but things get spicy when the crew starts thinking he might get chatty, so they hire a hitman. Spoiler, it doesn't work. The FBI reels him in, the crew gets busted, and $11 million is recovered. The heist was sloppy, hilarious, and weirdly charming. So much so, it inspired the movie Masterminds. Just goes to show, if you're gonna rob a vault, maybe don't buy a mansion the next day. The Antwerp Diamond Heist. It's 2003, and a crew of slick Italian thieves, led by Leonardo Bartolo, pulls off what's now called the heist of the century. Target, the Antwerp Diamond Center, smack in the middle of Belgium's ultra-secure diamond district. And when I say secure, I mean 10 layers of James Bond-level protection. Infrared sensors, magnetic locks, seismic alarms, the whole sci-fi buffet. But these guys? Absolute professionals. They spent years planning. They rented an office in the building, studied guard patterns, and even built a full replica of the vault to practice. When the night came, they slipped in like ghosts, disabled cameras, covered sensors with tape and hairspray, and picked 123 out of 160 safety boxes by hand. The haul? Over 100 million in diamonds, gold, and rare gems. They vanished without a trace. But here's the twist. Notar Bartolo got caught months later over a sandwich. DNA found on discarded lunch trash linked him to the crime. Still, the jewels? Gone. Never found. Just vibes and legends left behind. The Banko Rio Heist. Alright, 2006, Buenos Aires. Middle of the day, some armed guys storm into Banko Rio. They take hostages, wave guns around, and act like it's your typical "we want a chopper and a pizza" type robbery. Police surround the place. Tense negotiations start. It's a full-blown standoff, only it's all smoke and mirrors. While the world's watching the chaos above, down below, these dudes are slipping through a tunnel that leads right into the city's sewer system. They vanish underground with over 20 million in cash, jewels, and safety deposit goodies. Ocean's 11 vibes, but grimier. And just to flex, they left a note behind that read, "In a neighborhood of rich people without weapons or grudges, it's just money, not love." Iconic. The whole thing was orchestrated by Fernando Araujo, a literal artist who saw the heist as performance art. He was caught years later, but the story? Straight legendary. No violence, just brains, patience, and one epic getaway. The Northern Bank robbery. Okay, get this. It all started with a knock at the door. It was just before Christmas 2004 in Belfast. 2 Northern Bank employees were chilling at home when a bunch of guys dressed as police showed up. Super polite, very official. Only, they weren't cops, not even close. Turns out, these guys were running one of the calmest and most organized bank heists in British history. No yelling, no guns. They just straight up made themselves at home. Seriously. They held the bank manager's families hostage overnight, made tea, even took over the TV remote, like a very intense slumber party. The next morning, the employees went to work like nothing happened, still scared out of their minds, of course, because their families were still being watched. Then, that evening, they quietly let the robbers into the bank. No alarms, no drama, just 26.5 million in cash walking out the back door. No prints, no real clues, no arrests. To this day, it's the biggest unsolved cash robbery in UK history, the Lufthansa heist. All right, now we're jumping to 1978, JFK Airport, December 11th. There's this cargo building that looks like absolutely nothing from the outside, but inside, literal millions of dollars flown in from Germany just sitting there. Jimmy and his crew show up like they've rehearsed it 100 times, because they've got an inside man, guns out, guards tied up, alarms totally ignored. In just over an hour, they walk away with 6 million in cash and jewels. That's like 25 million today. Everything went perfectly, until Jimmy started getting twitchy. Bro saw how his accomplices were extremely showing off and had to do something about it. So he started tying them up, permanently. One by one, people vanished. Trunks of cars, construction sites, all gone. The FBI tried, but they never nailed it down, and the cash was never found. The Great Train Robbery. Let's rewind to 1963. August 8th, there's this mail train heading from Glasgow to London, and it's not just carrying letters, it's got 2.6 million pounds in used banknotes on board. Totally untraceable, just begging to be taken. So a crew of 15 guys led by Bruce Reynolds cooked up a slick plan. They messed with the train signals to make it stop in the middle of nowhere, then hopped on dressed like railway workers. They knocked out the driver, he lived but was pretty banged up, uncoupled the money carriage, and loaded all that cash into trucks waiting nearby. After the heist, they chilled at a farmhouse playing Monopoly with real money and eating egg sandwiches like nothing was wrong. But they slipped up, fingerprints on dishes, weird laundry, and a nosy postman tipped off the cops. Most got caught, but Ronnie Biggs pulled off the ultimate escape to Brazil, lived it up on the beach, and later came back saying, "At least I got a tan." It's still one of the most famous heists in UK history.